Urban monk, the spirit that wouldn't leave. This is a true story. One that has never left me. Even though it happened to my wife's family. Because the spirit in it would not leave either. Ghost Month Series, Episode 3. My wife and one of her brothers stayed with their grandparents in a two-story shop house along Dunlop Street. The others only visited on weekends. They lived above a florist shop. Simple days. Quiet days. All the bedrooms were upstairs. One room was rented to a poultry couple. Downstairs, the front shop was rented to a florist couple. They had an electric sewing machine for their banner work. At night, a neighbor we called Gong Kia slept there to watch over the place. There was only a door between the rented shop space and the family living area. It was never locked, so he could enter the kitchen toilet at night. A few units away, there was a rubber company run by a stern man in his 30s. He had a fair complexion and looked a little like a Hong Kong actor from those days. So the children called him Jeong In Choi. He was not a friendly man. Whenever they played near his shop, he would scold them away. One evening, at about 7 o'clock, my wife and her brother were told to do their homework upstairs. The room was beside the upper staircase landing. Her brother somehow slipped away, leaving her alone in the room. The sliding door was half open. The evening felt ordinary, until it no longer was. While doing her homework, she heard footsteps outside the room. Quick footsteps. And a strange sound. Almost like giggling. She thought it might be her visiting cousin playing ghost again. He liked to fold up his eyelids, stretch out his arms, and groan just to frighten the others. So she slowly peeped out from the corner of the door. But it was not her cousin. It was Jung In Choi. He was sitting a few steps below the landing. One hand was pressed hard against his chest. Blood was pouring out through his fingers. And that strange sound she heard. It was not giggling. It was the sound of pain. She was terrified. She quietly withdrew into the room. Her legs nearly froze. She tried to call for help from the foyer. But downstairs, her grandmother and uncle were busy in the kitchen. Their voices carried on as if it were just another evening. Above them, everything had changed. It took nearly an hour before her uncle finally heard her. He came upstairs and led her down. She had hoped he would carry her. But instead, he held her hand. And together, they walked down the staircase. Each step felt sticky. It was blood. At the foot of the stairs, she saw a bunch of keys. And beside them, a pair of men's shoes. Those broad, high-heeled shoes popular in those days. They lay there in silence, as if left behind by a man who would never wear them again. Calls were made for an ambulance. Again and again. But in those days, the ambulance service was slow. He was still breathing, but weakening fast. An older cousin tried to place a large plaster over his chest wound. But the bleeding would not stop. The plaster soon fell away. After a while, he could no longer hold himself upright. His strength gave way, and he tumbled down to the lower stair landing. The adults rushed to him, but by then, he had already slipped into a coma. At last, the ambulance arrived, but it was too late. He was rushed to the hospital, yet he died before reaching it. Only later did the family learn the truth. He had been shot, and somehow he had made his way there, only to die on their staircase. After the police investigations were over, the mother and aunties were called in to clean up the blood. That night, the children were made to sleep outside on a sofa in the back lane. No one quite knew what to say, only that something terrible had passed through the house. In the following days, the house was cleaned again and again. The blood stains were eventually removed. The smell slowly faded. The old wooden stairs were replaced with concrete ones. Priests were invited to perform rituals. But even after all that, something still lingered. After the incident, strange things began to happen. Gong Kia, who used to sleep in the front shop, started behaving nervously. He no longer wanted to stay there overnight. He said very little, but whatever he felt, it was enough to keep him away after dark. One late night, while my wife and her sister were watching television in the living room, the electric sewing machine in the florist's shop suddenly began to operate by itself. The business was already closed for the day. The lights were off. The electrical power was supposed to be off too. Yet the machine started running on its own. They froze, then hurried away to sleep. Not long after that, the tenant's wife said she heard footsteps in the kitchen at midnight. Slow footsteps, and the soft jingling of keys. She had only gone there to use the toilet. But when she listened carefully, there was no one there. No one awake. No one in the kitchen. Then one night, the grandmother fell from her bed and injured her arm. She said something had pushed her. She did not speak dramatically. She simply said, "It pushed me." And after that, the silence in the house grew heavier. Not long after, the grandparents sold the shop house. They did not explain much. They did not have to. Everyone understood. The house no longer felt like it belonged only to the living. Some time later, an aunt met the new owner by chance. He said to her, "You sold me an unclean house." He was not talking about dust. He was not talking about dirt. He meant that something else had never truly left. Even now, whenever she passes that old shop house, the memory returns. The staircase, the blood, the silence that followed. So many years have passed, and still, she hopes that spirit has finally found peace and can at last rest. Some stories remain with us, not because we want them to, but because they never truly left. This was one of them. A spirit, a memory, a quiet walk back through time.